Welcome back. Today we're heading north. The Finnish market in Marbella is growing fast, and while they seek the sun, they also come with Nordic standards. Joining us are Ramsay and Saarikangas, two experts bridging the Helsinki and the coast, and also our legal anchor, Peter. Anne, I would love for you to share a bit about yourself, your background in Finland, and how you found your way here to Costa del Sol.
All right.
Yeah.
So I've been an agent for 8 years now, 6 years in Finland and 2 years here in Marbella. So I came here 2024 actually to take one of Finland's biggest agencies to Spain. So that was our first international office at the time, and I had the privilege to manage that operation.
And I have been working as an agent for 6 years. My background really is in banking. So I was working with Nordea, biggest bank in the Nordics, for 30 years. So I'm a bit older with the working age. But then, things happen in life, and I quit my job in banking, and it was a natural step to start in real estate. So first in Finland, we know the Finnish market, and now I've been working here in Costa del Sol as an agent for 3 years.
And who am I?
Yeah,
What about you?
So I'm Peter, and very briefly, I'm one of the founders of the law firm Franke of Fuente. We operate with 4 offices across Costa del Sol. We have an office in Palma and also one in the Canary Islands. And we specialize in property transactions, in taxes and immigration and everything else related to the investment. And I'm also a bit of a nerd when it comes to conveyancing and buying process, and that's a little bit why we're here today. We're now focusing on the next episode of the Country Files with Finland, and it's very nice to have you both here. We need to be a little bit careful now because your names are both Anne, right?
Yeah.
And I don't want to give you numbers 1 and 2. Let's avoid
No!
that. Let's not enter into a hierarchy here.
Yeah.
You're Anne and Anne.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, and you both have the experience of working in Finland, and of course now here in Costa del Sol. And for me, of course, being a Swede, we're friends of Finland, we're close to Finland, but I think there's a mystery around the Finnish market, the Finnish buyers, and I think there's going to be an interesting episode to reveal a little bit those maybe misunderstandings, misconceptions, and find out a little bit about the truth about your market and the buyers, and also a little bit to help, of course. This is also a reason why we do this, is to help other agents that never worked with the Finnish buyers, to maybe give them a few tools to understand this a little bit better, right?
Yeah.
Thank you for coming, by the way.
Thank you for having us.
So before we enter into our script here and a bunch of questions that we want to deep into, we have to mention the fact that we have a TV star here in our couch today. So you've been in a TV show, but it's related to real estate, am I right? In Finland.
Yes. So this was back in Finland. It was quite an international show. It's called Love It or List It. It's originally from Canada, but it's been done in several countries. And back in 2021, we did it in Finland as well. So I had the honor to be one of the competitors in that competition. So there's a real estate agent and a designer, and I was the real estate agent.
Fun.
It was so much fun and so popular.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So I imagine then Finnish clients and potential buyers are recognizing you from that show.
Yeah, I have a huge advantage with that. That's giving me a lot of clients still today.
We're going to move into the questions, but I just have to comment on this because this is always so interesting when we, not only of course in this show, but you meet people every day, I guess, and I do as well, coming to Costa del Sol, coming to Spain. Everyone has completely different backgrounds.
Yes.
Banking experience here, TV show in real estate. I myself was a criminal defense lawyer. I was a prosecutor before coming here. Malin, you've been in real estate as an owner of an agency for 13 years, but of course moved down to Spain as well. That's the dynamic, right? That's the cool dynamic of this area.
Exactly.
We're all part of this industry, but everyone really has complete different backgrounds.
And you never know what the background is before you talk to people.
Yeah, you never know who you meet.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
And before we move on then, again, we should maybe also mention that you have been with this company that you mentioned before for 8 years, I believe.
Yeah.
But something is happening at this moment. So what's going on now? You have another project in mind?
Yeah, this is a really interesting time in my life because actually yesterday was my official last day with this company that I worked for 6.5 years. And now I have a really interesting project going on. So...
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Would that to go?
My name is...
Well, good luck with that.
Thank you.
So Anne, can you please walk us through the buying process in Finland? Yeah.
Yes, because it is very different than what we have here in Spain. Well, the starting point is the same as in Costa del Sol. We do the listing agreement, right? And for that, for all the photos, for checking the papers, everything, it takes something like 1 week probably before we are out with the property that we are selling. However, in that process, during that week, the agent, him or herself, will go through all the documents regarding the property in question. And that means all the official papers that here the lawyers do. So actually the agent has all the background information, everything, statistics, legal square meters, the 5-year plan for the big renovations in the housing, etc., and also the history. And then we are in the market, hopefully with the right price. We do open houses for clients because they're the buyer, usually don't have an agent involved. So it's always the listing agent doing the job. And in most cases, properties, if they're right price, they actually sell quite good. I mean, now the market is very bad in Finland, or the economical situation in general. But normally, you know, when the right buyer is there and the pricing negotiation starts, it is within 2 weeks when the deal is done. So much faster than here. And in my opinion, and I'm sure that we agree, it is because the agent does so much background work. So everything is clear.
Can I ask then a question here straight away? This due diligence, so to speak, that you mentioned, which the agents are responsible for, this is legally mandatory to provide this information to potential buyers, or is it generally a good service that everybody wants to maintain?
It is legally mandatory, yes.
It's extremely strict, the system in Finland, and the agent has a lot of responsibilities. It's basically...
The lawyer's responsibility here is on the agent in Finland.
And a lot of the work is done, as I hear it, at the very beginning, to make sure that all the information is there and available.
Yeah.
That's a major difference, though, to how it works here.
And this is, you know, this is probably the major difference in Finland and in here. And this is why majority of our clients, being Finnish clients, are used to having this process. And that's why they obviously choose, you know, Finns as their agents, because we are from the nature, having this background and asking all the important questions that normally are in the lawyer's hands.
But Anne, so if I can ask you again here, so the listing is out, open houses, normally no buying agent, buyer's representative. Is it an open bidding? Is it a transparent bidding, or is it a sort of under the table negotiations with many parties involved? Or how does that part work, the negotiation and bidding process?
Well, we sure missed the good old times when we had a good market in Finland and there was a lot of bidding going on, because at the moment the market is very different. But it is quite transparent, to be honest. And it's actually because we have very strict laws and rules and regulations in the whole industry. So actually you are allowed to be quite transparent with the offers, basically telling them to others. But it's very much dependent on the agent, how he or she likes to do the job. But it's quite transparent, actually. And we have this thing where if we might be in a situation where we need to actually prove to the client that we have gotten a higher offer, like later on paper. So it's like actually it's quite strict. It's like we're not really fooling each other there, because it can have quite serious consequences.
That's similar to how it works in Sweden, at least.
Okay.
With the transparent bidding process.
Yeah.
Sometimes I imagine how that would be here if there was a mandatory for the agents to present all other offers that has been on the property during the negotiation process. That would be.
What do you mean, Peter?
I mean, for some reason, usually it pops up another buyer. I don't know from where.
Yeah, you know, it's hilarious because Finnish people always believe what we're told. So when you're told something and the client says, "Yeah, but the other agent, he said that they have an offer," and you're like, "Yeah, all right, well, we'll see about that."
Sometimes there is one, so you never know, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but and at what point then? So you have the hopefully bidding, but at least negotiations of price, etc. When is the deal signed? How is it finalized? So legally, contractually.
It is actually quite fast. The process itself, the bidding, it's very fast. I mean, by nature, I would say yes, some Finns, of course, are by nature, bidders. But we are very straightforward, and we most likely will go for the yes or no for the final price quite fast. So, very fast, actually, I would say within hours, probably.
So you conclude the negotiations quickly, and then the next step is to sign a similar to the private purchase contract as we do here. There's no reservation contract involved? Or?
Well, I would say the biggest difference is that basically the client does the due diligence, him or herself, because he receives all the documents before even making the decision. So once the client has made a decision to buy something and he's signing it's not like a reservation contract, but it's like an offer, basically.
Okay.
And when that's signed, you are legally binded to buy the property, and you will in fact lose 4% if you don't. So the fine is much bigger than in Spain, and it's also really binding, because I mean here you can still be subject to due diligence or subject to something, but in Finland when you sign the agreement, you basically already owe them at least 4%.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've heard about that. And so the solicitor's role then in this part of the process, where would I enter if I was a Finnish solicitor? Do I enter at all?
I'm sorry, probably you wouldn't. I as an agent, I would have to say in Finland, I would hope that you don't enter the process because we don't really use lawyers.
So no offices for Franke de la Fuente in Helsinki then?
Unfortunately, not for the
Not on this business, no.
In Finland, in real estate transactions, like these kind of normal transactions between individuals, when a lawyer enters, usually something has already gone wrong. Yeah.
So the due diligence, if you call it like that, right? The paperwork. I guess there's a trust from the buyer because it's legally mandatory to have the information correct,
right,
presented. Yes. And if you haven't, then the seller would be responsible for any errors, right? Imperfections.
Yes, but I think that here again, it's important to remember or understand that the agent actually knows exactly what is legal papers, which legal papers you need to have. And if you don't enter the market. That's, simple as that. And when Anna said that, yes, then the buyer actually will go through all the papers in beforehand. Addition to that, very many buyers have actually mortgage. And then the banks will also go through the papers so they know that, okay, is this housing actually a good housing to invest in? So that's, I'm sorry, you lost your job in Finland.
Yeah, I did.
On this business.
If I had one, I would have lost it. Okay, and then we know also there's something called housing companies. I don't know if this is the correct translation. What's the Finnish term for it really.
Asunto-osakeyhtiö.
Yes.
Ah,
Yes.
Yes.
say that again, please.
Asunto-osakeyhtiö.
Asunto-osakeyhtiö.
Yes.
Okay. So
It's like a housing stock company.
okay, so can you tell us a little bit about that? What is it?
Is the most traditional way of organizing urbanization basically in Finland. So usually it's one house. It's like either a townhouse complex or a apartment building or anything like that, where the owners they are not owning actually a part of the house. They are owning stocks in the association, and the responsibilities are very different there than they are in Finland. So basically it's quite easy for Finns to understand the system in Spain, but there are a lot of confusions in the responsibilities, because in Spain they are still unique houses that you are responsible for, but in Finland it's like basically the housing association takes care of a lot. So it's a little bit different.
Yes. So this sounds quite similar to what we in Sweden call bostadsrättsförening,
Yeah.
Yes.
which means that you actually own shares, as you say.
Yeah.
And it also, tell me if I'm correct then, that it also means that this community or this housing company can also take credits
Yes.
from the bank. So the interest rates matters for the buyers.
Absolutely.
Because you pay fees to the housing company,
Yes.
I guess, right? For facilities and for the general use of the areas and so on. And if the housing company holds a significant mortgage from the bank, then your personal private fees can increase dramatically depending on the general financial situation and interest rates.
May I take this one?
Yeah.
Yes, the banker.
Yeah, the banker.
I'm on fire. Yes, and this is very important, and this makes a huge difference in Finland for the buyer, because obviously, at least what the buyer should do always is to ask for the housing loan. How much is it? Of course, you get it in papers, but what is the interest rate? Because you might be able to negotiate your own loan being cheaper, and then of course you need to pay away the mortgage from the housing company and take your own loan for that. It's very different.
Yeah, definitely.
But maybe because in Spain you have basically the community fee and that's it towards the urbanization. But in Finland you have the community fee and then you might have this loan fee that is, as Anne said, for the housing company's loan. And they can be really big amounts. Like for just an apartment building, it can be millions of euros. And then you have your own share in that loan. So it can be quite a tremendous amount of money, actually.
No, absolutely. I mean, the interest rates, not only in Sweden, and most countries, throughout the last few years, we have seen quite, increases in those interest rates, which in percentage-wise could mean hundreds of percent increases for a family. And here, of course, in Spain, the comunidades, they cannot have a credit because they're not a legal entity in that way. And I get these questions many times, actually. So tell me a little bit about the health, the financial health of this community. Well, there's a budget. It's a yearly budget set by the community, which shall pay for the maintenance costs, etc. And you have a legal obligation for the community to set aside a percentage each year for repairs, future repairs, a fund, basically. And of course, the one thing that could actually have an impact here is that if you have a community where you have a big minority, a lot of people for different reasons are not paying their community fees, then of course that could land on that they might increase them for others, right? Okay, the binding offer here, I want to ask something more about this because this is so interesting, the 4%. So, banker, can we explain this a little bit more in detail? So is it a contract tied to the 4% deposit, so to speak?
Set by the law, always regulated. It is not put as a deposit. It is like, you pay the fee if you back off from the deal.
You pay to the vendor, to the seller?
Yes.
Not in escrow, to the seller?
Yeah.
Okay.
Happens very seldom. And this, of course, then if we go back to Spain and, the case where we or always, when we pay the 6,000 euros in majority of the cases as a reservation fee, you know, it's really like...
Low in comparison.
It is low in comparison and not really for us as Finns reliable or, you know...
Actually, so how do they reflect on the reservation contract here?
Here.
Yeah.
I think that both of us, because we know the Finnish people and the Finnish market and majority of our clients are from Finland, we go through the process very clearly with the buyers or with the sellers, you know, in beforehand. So I think it's quite good. The atmosphere is okay, you know, when they find a property or we find the property for them, that they say, yes, let's, you know, go on and do the reservation. But what is important, and I'm sure that we agree on this, is that the communication between the reservation and the arras, the due diligence, is so important to, you know, be in contact with the buyers, communicate clearly, and with the seller's agent as well. So the agent communication, the lawyer's communication is crucial.
Yeah.
That is where the little bit of uncertainty comes. And therefore, you know, I never say to clients, congratulations at this point, because it's not, we're not there yet.
Yeah.
No. I think it's a little bit scary for them sometimes to sign a contract where they have actually not seen a lot of paperwork in advance, but as it is refundable and subject to due diligence, it makes the situation a little bit more comfortable.
If the contract states all those
Yes,
facts.
you are right. There we have to be...
You can be sure with us it
Yes.
does.
No, with you definitely, but I think I mentioned this in other episodes as well, that the reservation contract, sometimes when we talk about that, it almost sounds like there's one reservation contract that every agent uses. Of course, there are many times we include the same kind of clauses and conditions, but people shall be a little bit aware that if you're working with another agent, that even though they say it's a reservation contract, when you read the actual content, the information of that contract, it's something else. It might be much more binding or much less binding. Next question. This is something that I haven't heard of before, so interesting for me to understand it better. The debt-free price. The Finnish buyers are interested to know the debt-free price. What does this mean?
Yeah, that's a very big part of our like real estate culture again. So as we were speaking, the housing company may have a big loan, whereas your apartment will have a part of that loan. So you will have the debt-free price, that is basically the whole price, and then you'll have like the, how would I translate it, the selling price. So the selling price is the price of the apartment, and then you add on top the part of the loan from the housing association. So you always have to look at the debt-free price, because that's the whole price you'll basically be paying. But you are either paying the selling price, and then you're paying monthly the like loan fees to the housing association, or then if you decide to, with probably your cheaper loan from the bank, pay away the debt from the housing company, then you pay away the part of the housing company, and then you pay to the seller the actual amount of the apartment. So the seller actually only gets the amount of the apartment, and the debt is then between you and the housing association.
I see. So there's a Finnish client then here, Costa del Sol, on the phone with you, and she asks you, what's the debt-free price of this property?
Yeah.
Well, how do you start to explain it then? What?
They are asking that a lot, especially in new construction, because in Finland it's like we finance a lot of the new construction prices with that bank loan. So then you actually have to put in quite little cash, and the rest is a loan. So it's very normal for us, and I get that question more frequently, where it's like a new build complex, but then you just explain to them that like this is so good news, there is no housing loans here, because it is really good news, because as you mentioned, the interest rates have been quite high, and there's a big risk with those loans as well these days. So to not have them here, I think it's an advantage for the Finnish buyers.
Right. How about you, Anne? What's your experience on this point?
I've never been asked about it.
No?
But it can be that I actually explained that. Because the question never arised.
Could it also be, this is something that I encounter in many conversations, is that interesting to hear your view on this. Are clients, including of course Finnish clients, then doing more research? Are they more knowledgeable? Do they, with ChatGPT and everything else, do they have the feeling that they know more, or they think that they know more at least?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's like, you know, supporting the clients already, you know, knowledge very much. So yes, I think that by nature Finnish people do prepare for everything. I mean, this is a huge investment, and this includes us. But it is a huge investment, no matter how much it is that we're talking about. So the preparation is done already from the client perspective, and they have probably sent you 1,000 messages before you go to viewings. And you need to have that confidence with the client when you start the process. So yes, preparation is done.
And I have to tell you something. I don't know if you know, but like having a house in Spain, it's like the typical Finnish dream. And because of that, we have a lot of news from Costa del Sol in our like daily newspapers in Finland, and they love to write about all things drama. So the okupas, that's their favorite topic. And then about, of course, construction companies going bankrupt, that's interesting. So it's like, it's in our daily news every day in Finland. So it's like really a familiar subject to everyone, usually through the like scandalous point of view. But also, as you said, they are really interested in this topic and they are reading about it like daily. So,
Yes.
yeah.
That's good
may I
to know.
say something, Peter? Now, when you know, said it that way, there are 250,000 Finns coming to Costa del Sol every year. And we are talking about long period. Addition to that, there are 15,000, a bit more, readers in the Finnish Costa del Sol magazines.
So let's speak about this. This is also something that a topic that I talk with many agents about. And of course, we know, all of us, that urbanistically, legally, where we are, especially in Marbella, I would say that we have some imperfections. You know, we have an urban plan that we applied, which from 1986. We have good news that the new urban plan seems to be on its way. But now, considering that we have the highly regulatory market in Finland, being very thorough in their research, expecting everything to be properly done, etc. They do their own due diligence of the documents and so on. What's your experience when it comes to when they meet this kind of imperfections in the Spanish market? How do they react to that?
Like this.
Yeah.
To be short. Yeah, it is difficult. And it is shocking. But I think it's after the first shock, there's so much good in the market that, you know, you can actually handle the difficult parts or, you know, these gray areas. However, it goes for both of us that these gray housing companies, for example, here in the areas close by, we don't take our clients there. So as an agent, you need to know what you are selling. You need to know how well maintained the community is. This is important, and this is probably why people tend to, you know, come to us. It is difficult, for sure. There are gray areas. And of course, I mean, this is like a Wild West when you enter the market. It was a Wild West for me when I came here. I was like, you know.
But you solve it through information, right? I mean, there of course, yes, there are things you have to explain. There can be the lack of LPO for certain properties. There can be, you know, urbanistically, there can be infractions, etc. And I agree with you that many clients from many places would be a little bit concerned maybe about this, etc. But I think if they're properly informed from the very beginning on how the market is actually, how it works, what kind of products there is, and then usually they feel more relaxed about the whole thing. What do you think, Anne?
Yeah, I 100% agree what you say, but also one curiosity about Finnish clients is that in our culture we are very jealous of the neighbor always. So I get a lot of questions from my clients like, but what is that neighbor doing? Like there was a case where somebody built like a creative terrace on their balcony, like something, and they were asking like, but did he get permission, and like, but what did he do, and can we do that? So we are really concerned about what other people are doing, and I think that's something that sometimes is hard for them to understand. It's like, he built it, it's now his problem, don't get into it. But the good news is maybe you also can build something and nobody will care about it so much. So there is also the good side in that it's a little bit more flexible here. So you don't have to, because it's extremely regulatory in Finland how you can build, what you can build. So you can be a little bit more flexible and creative here. So it has the good side as well.
So you're saying what you're saying, Anne, if I try to be a little bit funny, is that you should look out to have Finnish neighbors here in Costa del Sol, because they will ask questions.
They will ask questions. They will really ask questions. Yeah.
That's okay then. And so, in terms of the total costs when it comes to the financial part of the transactions here, we've heard about the 4%, but that's the binding part. It's not a tax, of course. But when it comes to the taxes.
Yes.
In Finland, where you buy a property, what can you tell us about them?
If you buy an apartment in a housing company, then it's 1.5. That's like normal. And if you buy a property, a villa in Finland, then you pay 3% tax. Versus here, you pay 7% or 10% if it is new built. So it is a very big difference. But actually, this is something because, we are confident with the regulatories and taxes. Of course, first it might be a shock, but it has never been a discussion point with my clients because, as we talked about the getting to know your market in advance, they already know that. And they have probably calculated already what it would mean if they sell it in 5 years and what is the ROI as an example.
Yeah.
So, but it is different.
But it's nothing that it doesn't shock them.
As Anne said, if they are prepared as they usually are, it's not really a surprise. But when it is a surprise, it will of course adjust the budget a bit. So what I'm trying to do is like in a gentle way ask like if you're budgeting 1 million, is that including the additional costs or excluding them? Because I mean it's quite a significant difference still with all the costs that they are paying. Yeah.
And also if they are interested in a mortgage, of course, the mortgage is on the price and not the costs.
Yes.
So that's something we always have to explain, and including Finnish buyers. Now, buyer psychology and trust is the headline for the next few questions here.
Love it.
Yeah.
We know about trust.
Okay, let's start with you then, Anne Ramsay. So the question here is: Are the Finns impulsive buyers, or would you say that they are more thorough in their needs of information and so on?
I love this question because Finns are really like they're investigating everything and they are calculating and they are asking their friend who has a villa and they are like taking, but when they find the right one, the Excel goes out of the window immediately. So it's like they are really prepared, they are really comparing, but I've seen it so many times that they have like, I have literally sometimes clients with their own notebook on the viewing where they are really like considering everything, but once we find the right one, it's like, let's go. So it's lovely because this is an like emotional investment. It's usually not to make like immediate money, but it's to enjoy it yourself. So it's a really different kind of investment than a house or a home in Finland would be.
Yeah, and this might be an interpretation which is wrong, but I think the question is here that the Finns are known to be a bit modest, silent, the silent type. You're definitely not. You're very bad examples then. Is this first of all, is this correct, would you say? And Saarikangas, and how can that have any kind of impact sort of when buying properties here and when you're assisting your clients here?
Yeah, bad examples. Why did you choose us? No, but seriously, at the beginning, when you meet the Finn for the first time, my best advice would be to give some space. Don't go as the, seller's agent and introduce the kitchen, because the Finn will think, I know that's a kitchen, thank you. So it's to have the space for your own thoughts, or probably with your wife or husband, to talk about, or for us, being their agent in, speaking in Finnish. So the own space is hugely important for the clients. And even though we wouldn't smile, it doesn't mean that I don't like you. It is like I'm interested in you.
I'm observing you.
I'm observing, I'm evaluating. Don't talk if you don't have the facts with the Finn at the beginning.
Yeah, we don't like
That's
the small talk.
Rule number one. The small talk, the hugs and the love and the friendship will come once you earn the trust. And the trust needs to come with facts. That is, but we are so emotional. Come on. We hug and love and love the kisses in Spain and everything.
But Ramsay, then, of course, you have the big advantage because you're from the country, so you know how to work with the Finnish. But of course, we have, as you said, a lot of Finnish people here, and there are many agents that might encounter, of course, Finnish buyers. So taking the Finnish, let's say, culture and the personality traits, etc., in mind, how can you best assist them? How should you approach a Finnish buyer from a more buyer, psychology point of view?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, because actually when I take my Finnish clients to other brokers' listings, I really carefully select which broker it is, because you can never be too pushy with the Finnish people. As Anne said, first of all, if you have nothing to say, don't say anything. Like, of course, some small talk, but don't push things, or don't try to make a big number of yourself, and don't try to take up all the space. Give some space to the client and listen to what they have to say, and just be respectful and be calm, and because I've had experiences where literally the other agent has scared away the client because they've been so aggressively selling or highlighting luxury and money and everything, because we are very humble people. Even the richest of the Finnish people, you would never even guess who they are, because we are very humble, we don't show off, and we don't talk about money. So be humble, give space, and don't talk about money. That would be my advice.
Yeah, that's sounds like a nice approach to me, actually.
Yeah. To a Swede as well.
Yeah. And when it comes then to the negotiations, what would you say then when it comes to the buyer psychology there? Are they tough negotiators, or are they looking for a balanced, are they seeing both perspectives, or how would you describe it?
I would say very tough negotiators, absolutely. But it might be that I also guide them to be tough. But, at least, and I think it goes again for both of us, but I guide my clients very much. It's not about, of course, it is about the commission as well, but at the end it's all about the happy client. Happy clients, happy Anne. That's how it is. And so you need to tell your client the understanding already, where would be the ideal price for this property. And we can certainly see if it is right priced or not. And then we guide our client. And of course, there needs to be a buffer. But I think that at that point, when a Finn goes into negotiations of the price, they are serious.
Good point.
Yeah.
Please continue.
Yeah, sorry. And also, but then it comes what you said, very good, that, don't push the Finn too much. So as a, seller's agent, if possible, you know already the nationalities. So it's not like you can't play with them in a way if you want to make a fast deal or a good deal or whatnot.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when would you say that a negotiation could go badly? What kind of counter offers or what kind of factors in a negotiation can have a Finnish potential buyer to step back and say no, not?
All kind of arrogance.
Okay.
We hate arrogance, and there's quite a lot of it here in Marbella. So I think for us it's really important to be the filter in between. Like you have the seller's agent, if we're thinking about a Finnish buyer now. So you have the seller's agent and then you have Anne in the middle. So it's like the message have to be a little bit softened in the way to the buyer, because all kind of arrogance is extremely negative for us.
Yeah. So they are tough and expect a fair but tough
Yes,
negotiation.
yes. So one issue I'm facing sometimes now with a few clients is that the market has been extremely bad in Finland already for at least 4 years. And when they come here from Finland, they expect the market to be bad here as well. So they think they have time. They think they can go ahead and think for weeks or go ahead and negotiate like a huge bargain. But I mean, the market is extremely good here at the moment. So it's a little bit of adaptation for them to realize that actually here it's not the same.
I'm going to finish off with 2 questions to both of you. One is about sauna and one is about another thing. Let's say, so first of all, where are they buying? The Finnish buyers. Where do we find them on the coast? Traditionally, historically, and is there a trend towards other areas?
Well, I would say that you find them almost everywhere, from Málaga to Estepona, even to Manilva. So it is spreading a lot. Historically, what you're referring to, there is, history with Fuengirola and Benalmádena, but it is so much spreading here to Nueva Andalucía, Benahavís.
So it's changing.
Changing, and it's already there. For example, where I live in Nueva Andalucía, there is a huge Swedish society, as we both know, but the Finnish society is growing a lot, and it's very big already now.
Oh, maybe we have to arrange Finnkampen here in Marbella.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Let's do that. Are you very good at sports? Oh, we will be.
And you, Anne, so Ramsay, what do you have to say? Is that correct reflection, or do you have the same experience?
Yeah, I totally agree for sure. And I mean, it of course always depends on the budget as well. But Marbella for sure is growing a lot, and it's like a really specific clientele for Marbella. But another very popular area now is Higuerón, because I mean, it's the Marbella of Fuengirola. So it's where you get the new builds, the lovely services, the spectacular views, and the really high quality of the apartments. So that's one popular area as well, for sure.
Yeah, but I suppose, of course, so the famous area in Fuengirola where traditionally a lot of Finnish people have been buying properties, it's now, it's changing, you say. It's a trend that they're buying in other places also.
No, I would say that hasn't changed for sure. There was one broker once, a Swedish broker, who asked me, "Bor du i Mumindalen?" And I was wondering, like, what is the Moomin Valley? But it's Los Pacos. Yeah. And that's like that's the real Finnish place in Costa del Sol. So definitely Fuengirola is also very strong, but it's different clients, different budgets, different areas.
Yeah. Okay, and I also wanted to ask you, because naturally you have all the advantages in the world helping Finnish clients, clearly, and you also said that they love working with Finnish people. How about all the others? And do they at all work with non-Finnish agents, or is it?
Oh, that's hard to tell, because obviously I'm not sure if we would know, but for sure they are. I'm sure. You might have some connection to one of the you get friends, one of the other agents for some reason, for sure. But Finnish language is so different.
Yes.
And, speaking about the language, you have your love language, right? But money is also important. So when you, by default, you trust other Finn, you trust an agent being in Finland, knowing everything that is legally binding, which is also, a little bit different here. So maybe by nature is the case.
All right. Yeah, that makes sense. And now I wanted to ask you one of the final questions, is that one thing that would surprise anyone listening, and a non-Finnish person, I would say then, what about the Finnish buyers? What would you say then?
One very interesting thing is why I love the Finnish buyers, once again, is that they will never tell you they have money that they don't have. So if they tell you that they have 1 million, in fact, usually they have 2 or 3. So they are actually like telling us that they have a lot less money than they in fact have. And this is very interesting because a lot of times during the process, suddenly the budget is actually a lot bigger.
Ah.
So it's because I think in many nationalities it can be quite the opposite.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
Absolutely. It might double or triple during the process.
Yeah, for sure.
That's
Good
the
for us as
humble
well.
Finns.
The humble Finns for sure,
Yes.
yeah.
Nice. Okay, one final question. We have to ask this question. How about those saunas? You need to have them in the properties. Is that a big plus if there's a sauna in the house, Anne?
Yes, yes, we do have this, sun here, of course, and yes, a sauna is a huge plus. However, it needs to be the Finnish sauna. For builders, do not build a sauna if it is not a Finnish sauna. So it needs to be a Finnish sauna. And the first thing that we also do, but also the clients do, is to look on the heater that it's really, Finnish. However, there is also, possibility when we sell properties for our clients, we say that, okay, here is a place for your sauna. Because obviously we can see, what it needs. It is important.
It is.
But the thing is, not any sauna is good for a Finn because we are very specific in how we build a sauna. So I've had a lot of clients buying a property with a sauna, but actually completely renewing it right after the purchase because they weren't happy with how it was done. And as a Finn, I have to agree that it's interesting that sometimes you don't use specific building standards to build a sauna here.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you so much. I think we have covered everything now from Mumindalen to saunas, to taxes, to transaction costs, etc. And I think that anyone listening to this will really benefit of knowing more about the Finnish market and about yourselves as well. Thank you so much for coming, and good luck with new projects
Thank you.
ongoing.
Thank you.
Thank you.